Previously on this channel, I did a dive into the history of the game of basketball, discussing the first rules, how it came to be, and its evolution throughout the years. But what about the actual ball itself? Forget the rules on playing the game. What are the specifications and regulations on the basketball itself? There are a few videos already about the history of the basketball on YouTube, but they're more surface level. So I dove deeper and got as much info as I could. You guys have really shown love for when I do these history or documentary style videos, and I like making them. So without further ado, let's dive into what makes a basketball a basketball. So again, back in the first days of basketball, of course, there was no basketball. It was just a new game to play in the gym by the legendary Naismith. And thus, the first game of basketball in 1891 was actually played with a soccer ball. Now you may think, a soccer ball? But that has no bounce at all. And you would be correct. In my original video about the history of basketball, I revealed that there was no dribbling in basketball until 1901. The ball could only move by being passed, which is why ball movement is such an important part of the game and winning. Regardless, let's get back to focusing on the ball itself. For 3 years, the sport was only played with modified soccer balls. Then, in 1894, Naismith himself asked A.G. Spalding to create a ball specifically for the new sport, spawning the centuries-long relationship between Spalding and basketball. The ball originally looked like a rounded football with laces at the top and a brown leather pigskin exterior. It functioned almost like a light medicine ball, still with no bouncing and made just for passing. It wouldn't be long until competition stepped in though, with Rawlings manufacturing basketballs in 1902. In 1934, basketballs started making their way across the globe, far sooner than you may have thought, with a company called Nivea based in India starting to manufacture basketballs as well. The ball still remains the official ball for the AIFF. Just a year later in 1935, with the dribbling rule on the rise, the ball would change again. Chuck Taylor, well known for his contributions to another famous brand, Converse, would invent a ball with Wilson. This ball would have more give to be more elastic and springy, with no outer laces to the ball, in order to give it the bouncy dribbling feel that we know today. In the World Wars, cultures melted together and exchanged, spreading basketball to other corners of the world in the US. 2 years later, the sport of basketball was so popular, it became a nationally recognized sport. And like any national sport, it needed a regulation ball. This Wilson ball would be the regulation ball for a few years, but of course, it still had some problems. Much like many sports equipment back then, all the balls were still being hand-stitched. It wasn't until 1942 that these balls would start to become more uniform. With machinery, molds were made for the balls. There was no room for human error or human inconsistency. Factories and machines mass-produced uniform, perfectly shaped round basketballs. With basketballs finally having a constant shape, a new regulation was added to the balls. They had to be manufactured at 76 centimeters. Towards the 1950s, the game of basketball became more exciting and fast-paced. Still not as fast-paced as today, but definitely a fast-moving sport for the time. This created a problem as both fans and players complained that it was hard to see the dark-colored brown ball on the dimly lit basketball courts. So Tony Hinkle from Butler University suggested making it an orange color instead, making it easier for everyone on and off the court to see, adding to the spectacle of the game, seeing it fly around like the Harry Potter golden snitch. In 1958, the worldwide scene of basketball would expand again, with a Japanese company called Molten starting to produce basketballs as well. In 1964, Tokyo hosted the Olympics. With Molten being a Japanese company, this meant that Molten was the official ball of the Olympics, to which it has stayed ever since. From this point, the basketball actually didn't change much for several decades. It wasn't until the 1970s that the ball would change again, adding 4 new panels to the ball, from 4 to 8. This gave players better grip and control over the ball, which added to playmaking and dribbling creativity. Without those 4 extra panels, we may have never had legendary Kyrie, Allen Iverson, or Pistol Pete handles. A year later, the material on the ball also changed. It still had a leather feel, but it was made out of synthetic leather. This meant that the ball was cheaper and easier to produce, expanding the market for them, which helped increase the sport of basketball to the youth and across the world. The competition also increased with this new synthetic leather, with Adidas and Puma beginning their manufacturing as well. In 1979, Baden entered the world of basketball with the game changer. Baden created the first woman-sized basketball. The NBA also made the new standard size to 29.5 inches. In 1982, Molten would partner with FIBA to become the official ball for their league, as well as leagues for Australia, Argentina, Uruguay, France, Great Britain, Greece, Indonesia, Italy, Lithuania, the Philippines, Poland, and Portugal. It was the official ball of the EuroLeague as well. Molten, as we said, would continue to be the official Olympic ball from 1988 to 2020 as well. There is another Olympics this year, so we should expect a Molten ball on the court. Once again, after this change, the NBA ball stayed pretty consistent for another decade, until the Spalding-Wilson battle reached a climax. In 1983, Spalding would retake its spot in playing a part of Naismith's legacy. Spalding became the official ball of the now NBA again. Wilson had a contract to be the official manufacturer of NBA basketballs through the 1983 finals. Larry O'Brien would step down as commissioner and the legendary David Stern would take over, who would sign Spalding as the new game ball to take over as early as the 1984 preseason. In 1984 as well, the previously mentioned Baden women's basketball became the official ball of women's NCAA. This ball would remain relatively unchanged until 2006. 2006 was a disaster year for basketballs. Spalding made an attempt to create fully synthetic basketballs. There was a lot of benefits that were thought to come from this ball. Spalding had a bit of a leather shortage, and this would allow them to still supply all the basketballs they needed. Leather balls as well needed to be broken in, but these balls would be made to the perfect standard already. It was thought to improve grip on the ball as well, but unfortunately, with the professional level of basketball being played with a fast-paced game and moving ball, the basketball would split, scuff, splinter, and rip players' fingers, causing injuries and discomfort. Players began to complain for all these reasons and also just the change in general. LeBron spoke out saying that every player in the NBA is there because they love basketball. They love the sport and thus love the feel of the ball in their hands. It feels natural and just something that means a lot to them. Why would they change something that meant so much to the players and something so fundamental to the game? To test these complaints, the balls were actually sent to physicists at UT Arlington that proved all of the players' complaints and also pointed out to even more criticism, including that the ball actually bounced 8% less going backwards in time rather than forwards in time. For this reason, the ball became infamous, known as the worst basketball of all time, in a worldwide story. The ball was quickly changed back to leather in hopes of never being used again, not even making it halfway through the season. In this same year of 2007 though, the EuroLeague basketball will change to Nike instead of Molten, but Molten is still the official ball of FIBA. In 2010, Spalding became the official ball of the NBL for Australia, and 2 years later, Spalding would take over Nike for the EuroLeague as well in 2012. In 2015, Wilson would become the official ball of FIBA 3v3, and a year later, Tarmac in 2016 started producing its own basketballs as well. After the horror of 2006 to 2007, the ball would remain leather with Spalding as the face of the NBA for many years. This was until very recently actually, where in 2021, yet again the Spalding vs. Wilson fight came to a head, when Wilson reclaimed its spot as the official game ball of the NBA. Once again, players complained about the change. After years of being used to the Spalding balls, shot percentage league-wide took a slump. Players complained that it did not have the same smoothness or softness and the grip was different. Despite these complaints though, the NBA kept the Wilson ball and the players eventually got used to it, in which it remains Wilson to this day. To this day, Spalding and Wilson still dominate the world of basketball manufacturing, but there is still much competition, with Adidas, Puma, Molten, Rollings, Nivea, Nike, and One, and so much more, of course. And with that, hopefully you learned something about the brief history of basketballs. There are a few videos already about the history of basketball on YouTube, but they didn't go that much in depth. This was a bit of an easier video to edit since it was just a timeline, but I still tried my best to give as much information as I could in an entertaining way. If you enjoyed this video or learned something, don't forget to like and sub and share the video around, all that cliche YouTuber stuff. You guys have been crazy supportive the last few weeks as I'm on 720 subs right now, and I'm trying to hit 1K by the summer. With that being said, I'll see you in the next one. Peace out.
This is not okay. This needs to stop now.